La Ligue des Champions, c'était très amusant cette semaine. What's up? I'm Adrian from RabonaTV.com. Let's stick to English. You don't want to hear me speaking French. And welcome to UCL This Week, a recap of all the action from this week's UCL action. I want to start by giving a huge shout out to everyone who joined us for the watch-alongs this week. You guys are the best, and man, were those ever fun. Especially Monchengladbach versus Real Madrid. And the people that donate to support the channel, you warm my heart. Unbelievable. So thanks so much for supporting the content. And speaking of content, let's get to the content. Loco Moco Moscow gave Bayern Munich a very, very difficult match in one of the early games on Tuesday. Bayern did indeed come out on the other side of this one as the victors, 2-1, but Lokomotiv put in an excellent performance in my opinion. We saw something very uncharacteristic and extremely rare in this match. Robert Lewandowski missing a sitter in the early stages. A wasted opportunity for him and Bayern there. But what we did see time and time again in that first half in Moscow was Bayern's midfield spraying diagonal balls over and over again to either Muller or Pavard on the right flank to bang in a cross, often first time, and that's exactly how Bayern scored their first goal. Diagonal ball to the right, of which Benjamin Pavard hit a stunning first-time cross that Leon Goretzka powered past Guillermo in goal. Goretzka just bursting out of his kit there. Anton Miranchuk, the identical twin of Alexei Miranchuk, who recently signed for Atalanta, he equalized in the 70th minute, but the best player on the pitch, Joshua Kimmich, put Bayern back in front with a well-struck low drive just under 10 minutes later, 2-1 Bayern, and they should have won by more, but hey, mission accomplished, right? In the other match, Atletico Madrid hosted RB Salzburg, and this was another fairly even match. I mean, Atletico should have scored far more goals than they did, but this was the João Felix masterclass we've been waiting for. Probably his best performance ever in an Atletico kit. In the 13th minute, Hector Herrera played a beautiful ball in behind Salzburg's defense that João hit on the overhead. So unlucky as it rattled off of the crossbar. That would have been an early contender for goal of the year, probably. But Marcos Llorente was the man who opened the scoring for Atletico half an hour in, a low strike that Stankovic will have been frustrated he let in. But that guy Szoboszlai equalized 5 minutes before the half was up. A well-taken goal from this man, once again his second in consecutive Champions League matches. RB Salzburg put themselves ahead just after the restart. A great squared ball that was poorly finished, to be honest with you, but Atletico's Felipe made a mess of the clearance, firing it straight into the roof of his own goal. Unfortunate for him, but he definitely could have done a better job with that one. Thankfully for Atletico though, the João Felix show really kicked into gear in the second half as he and Correa combined to equalize. Really good, unselfish play there from Correa. And in the 85th minute, a ball through the 18 found João once again, and his inch-perfect volley kissed off of the post and in. 3-2 Atletico, and they've put that massive L from match day 1 behind them now. And so with that win, Atletico moves up into second place behind Bayern. Lokomotiv and Salzburg occupy third and fourth. Still early doors, people. Shakhtar and Inter. Man, I really struggle with Inter these days as they are sound defensively for the most part, but they're lacking in any sort of bite in the attack. Again, it felt like if Lukaku didn't score, then absolutely nobody else is capable of it. Lautaro, he looked alright in his general play in this game, but his finishing is non-existent. Like, if I showed you this image, what do you think the most likely outcome would be? Exactly, a goal, but it wasn't because he somehow managed to mess that up. If he sorts out his finishing, if he lessens the load on Lukaku's shoulders, then this Inter team will be up and running. Unfortunate to have a couple of strikes ring off of the bar from Barella and a free kick from Lukaku, and if they sort the finishing out, they'll be a formidable side. I promise you, but this one ends 0-0. Borussia Monchengladbach versus Real Madrid was a great watch as well. There's something up with this Real Madrid side. It's almost as if they're having a really tough time with motivation these days until they find themselves in a difficult situation. And it was the exact same story against Borussia Mönchengladbach in Germany this week. Real Madrid had plenty of the ball against Marco Rosa's side, but there were few occasions when Jan Sommer was truly troubled. Gladbach were happy to just sit back and defend deep. Alvedi and Ginter were rock solid for the majority of the match, and they were quick to strike on the counter. Marcus Thuram scored a brace to put the hosts 2-0 up, and it was only then that we saw Real start to come into this match, around an hour in. 87 minutes in, and Gladbach were still 2-0 up, and they were continuing to get opportunities to further their lead, but given that Playa, Thuram, and Stindl were all taken off by the 79th minute mark, I think that was a mistake by Rose, as if those players were still on the pitch with the opportunities they had, they would have buried Real Madrid. But with Hans Wolf and Breel and Bolo, they looked toothless, really, and were wasteful time and time again with their final pass. There was 3-4 occasions where they just had one man to pass it around, and they passed it straight to Varane or straight to Sergio Ramos, which you could say is great positioning by Ramos and Varane, but when it's 2v1, you should be making more of that. And they were punished for it, just as they were against Inter. In the 87th minute, Benzema finished brilliantly from a Casemiro header that was just kept in play. And then Casemiro himself equalized in the 93rd minute with just 1 minute of added time remaining. So unfortunate for Gladbach, again, they were just minutes away from 3 points. But instead, they have 2 points as opposed to 6 after 2 matches. But hey, at least they're level on points with Inter and still within touching distance of Shakhtar. Real Madrid currently sit bottom of the table. FC Porto got a massive win as they quickly moved on from the frustrations of last week's match against Manchester City. Chancel Mbemba was a rock at the back for them against Olympiacos. He had one good save off of the line. I mean, their entire back line was fantastic, I thought, in this match. 10 minutes in, and 20-year-old Fabio Vieira pounced upon a ball in the box that Olympiacos had made a mess of to put the hosts 1-0 up. Olympiacos had 2 solid opportunities to equalize, one of which was saved by Mbemba and the other by Marchesín, but it was Porto who doubled their lead late as Marega floated across towards the penalty spot and Sergio Oliveira headed past Zaza. 2-0 Porto, a solid performance defensively, and the goals to go with it. Manchester City put in probably their best performance of the season with probably one of their best lineups that Pep has fielded this season. Marseille, the unlucky recipients of such, and Villas-Boas was pissed after the game. The guy does not lose well, and his team was played off the park, really. KDB was up to his old tricks once again, and he set up Ferran Torres just 18 minutes in. His easiest assist of the season, though it was a perfectly weighted, slotted ball to the young Spaniard. This really wasn't a good performance from Marseille, by the way. City were passing circles around them, which, to be fair, you have to give City credit for. But man, were Marseille ever sloppy at the back, especially in the first half. Zinchenko nearly made it 2-0 after 35 minutes, but his strike brushed off of the post after Marseille again were dawdling on the ball and made a mess of things. Gunnar apparently can't stop scoring in the Champions League, as a Phil Foden cross was nodded back into play by Sterling, and it eventually found the German for 2-0. And finally, De Bruyne and Sterling linked up as they have so many times in the past. Beautiful move down the right between Mahrez and De Bruyne before the Belgians played a squared ball to Sterling. 3-0, solid win for City. Villas-Boas absolutely screaming into his pillow when he went to bed that night. And so, City are the clear leaders at the moment with Olympiacos and Porto on 3 points each. Nada for Marseille. Liverpool hosted Midtjylland, a team that suffered at the hands of Atalanta last week. And while Liverpool got the 2-0 victory that was, let's be honest, expected of them, it came at a price. Another match, another defender going out injured for Liverpool, or at least in this case, a midfielder acting as a defender, as Fabinho limped off with a hamstring injury just 30 minutes in. 19-year-old Reece Williams came on to partner Joe Gomez, and the youngster didn't do too badly. Midtjylland didn't do too badly either, as they defended stubbornly against Liverpool's rotated 11. I mean, Klopp gave starts to Shaqiri, Origi, Minamino, and Milner, so it was very much a rotated side in the midfield and the attack. Jota continues to impress for Liverpool, and he finished off a great passing move. Assist from Alexander-Arnold, though you have to praise Shaqiri for that reverse through ball. Salah finished off the game with a penalty in the 93rd minute. He scored 7 goals so far this season, so a good start for him. It wasn't the easiest match for Liverpool, not their best performance. Alisson was forced to make a couple of key saves, and Midtjylland could have equalized late on, but 3 points all the same for Liverpool. Atalanta and Ajax faced off in what was, for me at least, probably the most attractive fixture of the evening, certainly the one that threatened to provide the most goals, as Ajax were fresh off of that 13-0 win from the weekend, and, well, it's Atalanta. The visiting side, Ajax, actually took the lead half an hour into this one, as Robin Gosens' foot was high on Lassina Traore. No question of the penalty call there, and no mistake from Dusan Tadic from the spot as he lofted it into the goal. And just 8 minutes later, the man who won the penalty, Lassina Traore, scored one himself. Good ball into the box from David Neres that Sportiello made a bit of a mess of, and Traore was there to bundle it over the line. 2-0 at that point. By the way, just some trivia here for you. Lassina Traore is actually the cousin of Bertrand Traore. But anyways, Traore talk aside, Atalanta really picked it up in the second half, and in a 6-minute spell, Duvan Zapata scored 2 goals. Papu Gomez with a lofted ball to the back post that the Colombian headed past Onana, and then Pasalic played Zapata through, and he absolutely smashed it past Onana on that occasion. His 4th goal in 3 matches, 2-2 the final, and a really stretched, entertaining match. And so, Group D shapes up as follows. Liverpool with a perfect record so far, they're yet to concede a goal, while Atalanta are just 2 points behind them, Ajax a single point following that draw. Midtjylland still searching for their first ever point in the Champions League, the club that was only founded 21 years ago, by the way. Oh, and Liverpool versus Atalanta, that's during the next match day, and I cannot wait for that one. Obviously, we're all going to watch that together. We'll do a watch along for that game. Welcome to Rabona TV After Hours, where we don't speak French. Group B, Chelsea went all the way to Krasnodar, which, by the way, have you looked at where it is on a map? That's a decent flight, at least by European standards. I mean, that's nothing in Canada. I fly 1,000 kilometers further than that just to see my family within Canada. But anyway, this was a routine win for Chelsea in the end, as you would expect of them. Despite Jorginho missing a penalty early in the first half, they were still 1-0 up going into the break via a Callum Hudson-Odoi goal. He had a great game, actually, I thought at least. The setup for that one coming courtesy of Kai Havertz. Krasnodar played well to start the second half, nearly leveling at one point, if not for the woodwork. But late on, Chelsea scored a flurry of goals. Timo Werner with a penalty that Pulisic won. Hakim Ziyech then scoring his first for Chelsea from a Werner assist. And finally, Pulisic scoring one himself. Great substitute cameo for him. 4-0 Chelsea, easy money. Sevilla took on Stade Rennais, and despite being absolutely dominant, you wouldn't know it by looking at the score sheet. I mean, Sevilla were absolutely relentless throughout this match, peppering Alfred Gomez in goal, ensuring he really earned his pay for the month. Or the week, I guess. 10 shots on target, 9 saves for Gomez, as Sevilla could only get the ball over the line on one occasion. Marcos Acuna, who was a thorn in Rennes' side all match, played in across to Luc de Jong, and the Dutchman finished beautifully first time. 1-0 after 55 minutes. 20 minutes later, they came close once again as Jean Jordan smashed a strike from distance that dipped and swerved off of the bar. Very close, that would have been a beauty. This was a match for Stade Rennais to forget. Bono didn't have a night off completely. He had a couple of saves to make, but saves that you'd expect him to make. 1-0 Sevilla, a much better performance to put those consecutive domestic losses behind them. And with that win, it brings them level with Chelsea, of course, given that they both have a draw after playing against each other and drawing, and a win to their name, while Krasnodar and Rennes are on a point apiece. After Lazio's big win over Dortmund last week, they would have had very high hopes as they went away to Belgium to take on Club Brugge, but Brugge is a confident team at the moment, and they certainly have some genuine talents on that team. That said, Joaquin Correa put Lazio ahead after just 14 minutes as he took on the ball beautifully. Nice turn there. Completely bamboozled Simon Deli and then curled it past the legend, Simo Mignolet. Anfield legend, Mignolet. Some great play from Club Brugge was awarded in the 40th minute, however, as Ritz was hauled down from a corner and Hans Vanaken dispatched the penalty well. It would have been frustrating for Lazio, as nearly a minute of play had went by from when the foul happened, but it was definitely a foul, you know? By VAR standards, at least. I guess refs really are starting to crack down on grappling from corners, because that's a lot of penalties we've seen given lately for grappling from corners. Or non-penalties in Maguire and Azpilicueta's case. In the second half, Club Brugge really should have put this game to bed, but they were a bit wasteful with their finishing. Very good performance from the Belgians, but just 1-1 in the end. Probably a result that a lot of Lazio supporters, and I mean just football fans alike, wouldn't have expected. Borussia Dortmund hosted Zenit St. Petersburg, fresh off of their Revier Derby victory, and they were dominant throughout. But the Russians defended well, and you know what? Music to Dortmund's ears, they defended quite well also. I mean, not a single shot on target that Roman Bürki had to deal with. No real difficult moments for them at the back as they controlled the match really well. Dahoud and Witsel playing in a double six is working out well to help with the balance of this team, as we all know how capable they are going forward, but they're a top-heavy team. All offense, and then there's a lot to be desired in defense. But they've looked good Thorgan Hazard won a penalty as he was hauled down in the box while contesting a cross, which Sancho converted, of course. And then, fear it, run from it. But Erling Haaland always scores, and this match was no exception. Substitute Jude Bellingham with a nice flick on, and the lanky Norwegian cruised between Lovren and Rakitsky to score his 12th Champions League goal from just 10 Champions League matches. What? This group is very tight with Club Brugge and Lazio on 4 points apiece, Dortmund on 3, Zenit still searching for their first point. Speaking of first points, Ferencvárosi got their first point of this campaign, and how, man? 25 minutes in, and a handball from Karatsan gave Dynamo Kiev's Viktor Sigankov the opportunity to score the club's first Champions League group stage goal in 4 years now, and he made no mistake. Just before the half, a long ball lumped forward was latched onto by Bujalski, and his squared ball was just out of reach of Kovacevic. That's Ferencvárosi's Kovacevic. Carlos de Peña slotted it to double the lead. 2-0 at the half for Dynamo, but the Hungarian champs didn't go down easily with a stadium that was about a third filled. With an hour gone on the clock, Tokmak Nguyen scored a stunner from an unlikely angle as he swiveled and hit a strike towards goal on the half volley that bounced off the post and in. 2-1 with half an hour remaining. And wouldn't you know it, half an hour later, in the 90th minute, a bit of a calamitous, accidentally on purpose free kick ended with Franck Boli scoring a last gasp equalizer. 2-2 from 2-0 down. A great comeback. Let's hope they get a win next time against Juve. I mean, hey, you never know. Especially if Juve play how they did in the second half against Barcelona, where they looked abject. But before we get to that, let's talk about the first half of this Ronaldo-less match. Juve under Pirlo thus far haven't looked great, have they? I mean, it's early doors, right? After the first half was up, Juve actually had some of the more dangerous opportunities, and they did actually score a couple of goals, both of which were offside. Morata, the guilty party as per usual, as this dude is always offside. Born offside, to borrow a term from a legend. But it was Barca who led after 14 minutes when Ousmane Dembele's deflected strike looped over Szczesny and in. Now before I talk about Barca, Morata actually scored 3 times and was offside all 3 times, a hat-trick of offside goals. So I do feel for Juve, just a bit. At one point they were 1-0 down despite scoring 3 goals, all 3 ruled out for close but correct offsides. But when you consider the fact that they were playing at home, and you look at the stats that show that Barcelona had 60% of the ball, and Juve didn't have a single strike on target, and it really doesn't look good for Juve. Then you add on top of that the fact that Barcelona were absolutely guilty of attempting to dribble the ball into the goal when they had clear shooting opportunities, and this could have been a goleada, an embarrassment for Pirlo and Juve. Ansu Fati came on, Bernardeschi stank it up and tripped him to give Messi a penalty, 2-0 Barcelona and a very much deserved result. Oh, and I almost forgot, Frankie de Jong was playing as a centre-back for the second half, with Sergio Busquets the dinosaur in midfield, and Juve failed to capitalize from that? Unacceptable. Dybala, missing. The rest of the team, not enough. Morata, he played well. Danilo, surprisingly, what, Danilo is your best player out there? That's a problem, dude. So Barcelona top the group with 6 points, Juve on 3, and Dynamo and Ferencvárosi have 1 apiece. Oh baby, Group H. Hang on, let's save United for just a bit later. Let's save them for last. PSG went to Istanbul with some drippy tracksuits, man. But their overall play was less than interesting to watch. In fact, the Turkish champions really pushed PSG hard, and quite frankly, they're unlucky to come away from this match with nothing. The scoreline flattered PSG just a bit, just a tiny bit. Perhaps things would have been different had Neymar not been injured in the first half, with Pablo Sarabia taking his place. Those are big shoes to fill, and a game-changing substitution to have to make. That said, Moise Kean continues to impress for PSG. He scored a couple on the weekend, and he scored a couple more this match, with 2 assists coming from Kylian Mbappe. It was nearly 3-0 actually, with Kean coming close, and honestly, I'm just happy to see him scoring goals again because he looked so dangerous for that breakout season at Juve a couple of seasons ago, but he had a hell of a time trying to adjust in England. A terrible time. And finally, as I suspected last week, when United beat PSG, that really could have been the result that turned United's season around. Sure, their match against Chelsea wasn't a great watch this past weekend. That's fair enough, but 4-1 over Newcastle, 2-1 over PSG, and now 5-0 over Leipzig, the German leaders, currently 5 games in. What? Honestly, man, Ollie really got things right in the second half of this match. Sure, Greenwood's opener, I mean, I'm pretty sure this was offside. So maybe they're fortunate there. Maybe they weren't. Maybe it was onside. I don't know. But yeah, that being said, who cares? I would like to see goals like this given in the future. And 2, that doesn't excuse Leipzig losing 5-0. Leipzig were bad in that second half especially, and United were excellent from around the 60th minute mark on. In fact, when Ollie made the substitutions. The second goal was impressive, and you can tell it was a training ground goal. 2 quick passes from Pogba and Bruno to release Rashford, and he made no mistake. Clearly, Ollie knew that Leipzig and Nagelsmann were going to play a very high line with both of their center backs in United's end of the pitch, and they exploited that beautifully with the speed of Rashford. Not long after that, and Rashford pounced on a mistake from Sabitzer. You absolutely hate to see it from Sabitzer. And he lashed it past Gulashi. They weren't done there, as you know, with Martial later scoring a penalty, and finally Rashford rounding out his hat trick. The super sub gets a second half hat trick. United score 5 in the Champions League for the first time since 2013. Job done. Sorry for hitting the mic. I've done that a couple times during this recording session, I think. So a collapse from Leipzig, sure, but Ollie didn't rest on his laurels in this one as far as subs go, with Rashford and Martial having their way with Leipzig's back 3, and that high line killing Leipzig. I mean, Nagelsmann got what he deserved for that whack suit he was wearing. Come on, bro, you can't be going out like that. So, United topped the group with 6 points, and deservedly so. PSG and Leipzig are on 3 apiece, and Istanbul Başakşehir on 0. Look at that. United started to find some of their form, and myself finding the end of this video. That's a poor segue, as poor as Leipzig's performance. But hey, I appreciate you joining me once again. A big shout out to all the people who supported the live streams this week, all the people who made the starting 11. If you want to get in the Rabona TV or the Rabona Sporting Club starting 11, you just got to come through to the watch-alongs. And I'll see you next week for another video or 3, one of which I'm very excited to release. I'm Adrian, this is Rabona TV, and I'll catch you later. Ciao.